wisdom, student enrollment. That's what the class of God students enrolling. Supreme wisdom, I study it hard. The study of myself is the study of God. Supreme wisdom, write your letter, get your X. Supreme wisdom, that's what you'll be getting next. Supreme wisdom, some call it the lessons, but I call it life, actual facts, no guessing.
Now let's look. Conversation. Just imagine you were on the block, at work, wherever you were, any given day, and you heard somebody say, "What you thinking about? What you thinking about?" And the person said, "I ain't thinking about nothing." You heard that all the time. Huh? I ain't thinking about nothing. All the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, what's implicit in the statement is nothing.
You have nothing in your brain. So you ain't thinking about nothing. Nothing. I just thought that you would have people that ain't thinking about nothing. And like Brother Darrell said, it's relative. Unless it's connected to something that is doing something.
That's pretty messed up.
Yes. So let's go ahead and look. Now the scripture says that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But I want to look at this when it says that the earth, it said, I mean, if you really just take a look at this statement, it tells you that there was something. It says the earth was without form. It's like the earth was without form and a void, and a darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So it's like it's telling you everything is there, but it just was not doing anything. That's Genesis, the first chapter. Sister Gabrielle, could you get ready to cue this up? Now, of course, I think Google is probably one of the closest things that we can get to asking God a question. Because you can just type a question and somebody else has already answered. Doesn't mean that you get the right answer all the time, but at least you have something to start with. So I Googled the question, can you think of nothing? And so it says here that there's no such thing as nothing. So I think Sister Gabrielle was correct. I think that Brother Darrell was correct, according to quantum physics. It says, would that it were so simple, to quote the Corbin brothers, theoretical physicist Lawrence Krauss explains. I'm sorry? Oh, yes, it's two Jews, Brother Darrell. They're the ones that are all, they're over the science. Okay, so anyway, he explains, over the last 100 years or so, trying to nail down the experience of nothingness has become surprisingly complicated. You know, the Bible, the biblical void, not so much. Just because you can't see anything doesn't mean a space is really empty. It's all about the maddening, unstable rules, if we can call them that, of quantum physics. So, what I'm suggesting, what I'm postulating this evening, that what Master Fard Muhammad taught, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was quantum physics at the highest level. Well before, they said theoretical physicists, that's when you think about how things work. And then you have experimentalists that actually go into the laboratory and begin to start experimenting with it. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about quantum physics before we even knew what quantum physics was. Okay, so she's going to play this video. And this video is I believe it's Lawrence Krauss. And it's a 2-minute video. And he's going to talk about, is it possible to think about nothing? Hold on, you can't hear it.
Nothing is a physical concept because it's the absence of something, and something is a physical concept. And what we've learned over the last 100 years is that nothing is much more complicated than we would have imagined otherwise. For example, the simplest kind of nothing is the kind of nothing of the Bible, say an infinite empty space, an infinite dark void of the Bible. Nothing in it, no particles, no radiation, nothing. Well, that kind of nothing turns out to be full of stuff in a way, or at least much more complicated than you might have imagined, because due to the laws of quantum mechanics and relativity, we now know that empty space is a boiling, bubbling brew of virtual particles that are popping in and out of existence at every moment. And in fact, for that kind of nothing, if you wait long enough, you're guaranteed by the laws of quantum mechanics to produce something. So the difference between empty space with stuff in it and empty space with nothing in it is not that great anymore. In fact, they're different versions of the same thing. So the transition from nothing to something is not so surprising. Now you might say, well, that's not good enough because you have space. Where did the space come from? Well, a more demanding definition of nothing is no space. But in fact, once you apply the laws of quantum mechanics to gravity itself, that space itself becomes a quantum mechanical variable and fluctuates in and out of existence. And you can literally, by the laws of quantum mechanics, create universes, create spaces and times where there was no space and time before. So now you've got no particles, no radiation, no space, no time. That sounds like nothing. But then you might say, well, you know what? You got the laws of physics. You got the laws of nature. The laws themselves are somehow something, although I would argue, in fact, that is not at all obvious or clear or necessary. But even there, it turns out physics potentially has an answer. Because we now have good reason to believe that even the laws of physics themselves are kind of arbitrary. There may be an infinite number of universes, and in each universe that's being created, the laws of physics are different. It's completely random. And the laws themselves come into existence when the universe comes into existence. So there's no pre-existing fundamental law. Anything that can happen does happen. And therefore you got no laws, no space, no time, no particles, no radiation. That's a pretty good definition of nothing.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and unpack that right quick. The whole concept of nothingness, he says, is that because of quantum mechanics and the laws of quantum mechanics, we're constantly, what happens, with these subatomic particles, they have, the enemy has come up with about, I think, 11 to 13 subatomic particles. Some of them, like neutrinos, they actually, according to what they say, they can pop in and out of space. They can pass through matter. They can do all of these different things. But they've only found, when I asked my professor, I didn't look it up today, I asked Professor McGuire, say, well, how many subatomic particles have the scientists found? He said about 11. And I'm like, wow. Found is different from theoretical, in terms of them theorizing. But check out what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. This is heavy. That's why he spoke to God. There's just no other explanation for this. In the Theology of Time lecture series, we say in our Surah the Unity LE class, say He Allah is one. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that He is one. God is one. He starts as one. He's on the number one. And it says, if our Father was made on the number one, how did he get that figure when that dot there ain't anymore on the earth or in the universe, but before his creation? How did he become one? We just only want to build up ourselves so that we may know who we are, how we got to be who we are. If Adam, the atom, was one, could it have been one? We're taught that the atom is 1/10,000th of one, right? If that's 1/10,000th of one, certain parts of it, elements, which are particles, subatomic particles, elements of it, then how did our Father get up all those other parts to become one? I'm only diving at the points. I'm not saying to you that I'm trying to be no God over you. I'm just trying to be that which He made me. But if the universe or the darkness of space before life was created in it, what was that particular space that could produce life, he asked. We scholars and scientists, we attack each other. That's what makes us know more. We attack each other, and then if you can't answer to what you attack with, or to, okay, then something is wrong. We go back again after you and ask you, then what did you mean when you said space? How could there have been space? My subject, he says, is the theology of time. So he's saying that there was something, as Brother Darrell said, and that something, whatever it was, gathered itself up into one part. One whole that was made up of several parts. Anybody have any comments or questions at this point? I'm going somewhere with this. Okay. Now, he goes on again. Deep, high silence. Now, if we see one emerge out of this darkness, what force or power in the darkness brought it out? Now, these are questions that the physicists, the astrophysicists are asking now. And they've come to the conclusion, and from me to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, did mention the concept of what they call dark energy and dark matter. And I told him that the only way that what Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught of this substantive darkness, they didn't know anything about this in 1931. The only way they could have known, the only way that he could have known and say it in the language that he says it in, that somebody else had to tell him who knew. So it says that one could have not come out of the darkness unless a force was in the darkness to bring it out. In the universe now, there is a force in the universe that moves seemingly unmovable stars. And I'm just going to stay right there on that. And then he also mentioned in here, just for reference point, about 100 trillion year old star. So, nobody but God could have told this man this with a 3rd grade education. Never went to, the hallowed halls of academia and went to MIT and Harvard and all of these different places to learn about physics, like Einstein. He was a contemporary of his, but yet he knew. So the Quran says that Allah is God and the originator. Praise be to Allah, the originator of the heavens and the earth, the maker of the angels, messengers flying on wings, 2 and 3 and 4. And then it says, he increases in creation what he pleases. Surely Allah is possessor of power over all things. So not only does he originate it, he increases it. He increases what he originated. So he started with himself, and according to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the first operation in mathematics was division. He divided. Okay, so what is an originator? Of course, here we went over this before. Originator is something, a person who creates or initiates something. So the originator, the synonyms are inventor, creator, architect, author, father, mother, initiator, innovator, founder, pioneer, mastermind, and an origin is the point or place where something begins or arises. In the beginning was an atom of water. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that in the beginning of the universe there was an atom of water. Okay? And this atom of water was acted upon by an outside force. Okay? And it says here, isn't that a nice little graphic? The atom of water with the earth in it. I thought it was really nice. It says that this one here already, here in the darkness, but nothing did not give it to us until time brought it about. Then the time brought it about. It emerged out here into our view, into a revolving light. Light revolves. That was hidden here in the dark. We don't know how many trillion years it was there, but it was there. Now, so we don't know how long this was in the darkness. We only can calculate back to the history will only be held in the material universe up to 76 trillion years. Beyond that, we can't hold it in the universe. It's too much history. And as you can see, 1 trillion is a lot. So 76 trillion years is massive that the universe could hold it. And it could be simultaneous with, the cells in our bodies, if we think about it. Could our bodies hold more cells? Probably not. Because, when we have a cell that dies, we may have one that's reproduced if our immune system if it's good. They used to think that brain cells died and you didn't get any more brain cells back. But they've since proven that you can regrow brain cells. The human being, in our essence, can be a perfect machine once the brown germ is removed. A perfect machine that you have equal output for the input. That's where we're going. That's why the God set this universe in motion to perfect it. Now it says here, now with a fine atom of water out there with it, or made itself out of an atom. He didn't call himself he in the beginning. He referred to the atom of water as it. Okay? So he says that, or made itself out of the atom of water that it found in the darkness of the universe. I don't know what the it was, but the it existed before the he existed. Okay? We could not see the life emerging out of the space without water because we can't produce life without water. Now think about that. If there was water in the beginning, that presupposes that there was what?
Hydrogen and oxygen.
Elements in the beginning. Where they came from?
And electricity.
And electricity. We're going to that too.
Because you have chemical bonding, and they bond with electronegativity is the way that
Yes.
different elements
Mm-hmm.
bond, right?
Right.
Covalent
Yes.
bonding,
Covalent.
all those other things.
Mm-hmm.
So you need electricity.
So the point is here is that there was something in the universe. So nothing doesn't mean nothing. And why are we saying this? What does this have to do? You think this is just a science class? No. We're talking about who is the original man. So everything that I'm saying, it has a very significant relevance to us. So when we're thinking about this, we need to think about us as being like one in the triple darkness of space. Allah creates us creation after creation. One of them is a physical make and another one is a spiritual make. So Master Farad Muhammad came to make us into gods. He came to make us into himself through a process. It's not hocus pocus. It's not pixie dust. It's not anything that just all of a sudden, just because you black, you God. It's a process. That's why he's referred to as the Rabbil Alameen. He evolves us stage after stage into eventual perfection. And we can, by Allah's grace and permission, expedite the process by submitting. That's really where we get that from, submission.
Supreme wisdom, some call it the lessons, but I call it life, actual facts, no guessing.